Before we dig into today's episode, I want to take a moment and talk about something close to my home, my journey into podcasting. Dog with a Bone is my first season, and I am beyond grateful to have teamed up with James Basinger and Sasquatch Productions. If you're into deep dives, real boots on the ground investigations, and the kind of storytelling that leaves no stone unturned, you'll want to check out James's own podcast, Hide and Seek. He's currently working on season 4, but if you haven't yet, I highly recommend starting with season 1 through 3. They're all out now. Welcome back to Dog with a Bone podcast. This is episode 6, Eric. Please make sure to like and follow us on Dog with a Bone Facebook or Instagram page to join in on the investigation as we move through the season. I would love to hear your thoughts on the episodes previously and the ones to come. You can also subscribe to Dog with a Bone podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen so you don't miss an episode. All names mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Well, the time has come. Luck was finally on my side, but not so much for Eric. You see, Eric had been arrested only 2 days before I was to fly into Ohio. I quickly got on the phone with Jeff Stiers from Union County, who put me in contact with Scott, the executive director at the Tri-County Jail. Scott was extremely helpful and patient with me as we worked together to schedule an in-person visit. Scott informed me he would need to speak to Eric and get his permission, of course, but would call me back. I anxiously await Scott's return call, and when he calls me back the next day, I was surprised to hear that Eric agreed to meet. But I had my reservations. Would Eric cancel? Did he talk to Jackie? I simply crossed my fingers and hoped that when I got there, he wouldn't change his mind.
You're welcome to board here for Flight 2050 with services to Columbus at 8:25.
Once I landed in Ohio, Vicky and Eula, who are now my new best friends, were waiting for me. I jumped into Vicky's car and we took off, excited for the plans we had ahead of us. Our first stop would be to Eric. I had not received a call from Scott that Eric canceled, but the thought was still in the back of my mind. Would I arrive and be told, sorry, not today? As we made our way to Eric, I found myself looking out the window and could not help but notice just how things felt different this time. Of course, it was now sunny and hot compared to windy and cold from my last visit, but now this was my kind of weather. However, this was more of a feeling about just how far I had come from my last visit. I have been knee-deep into Bernie's investigation for the past 5 months and was confident in what I needed to accomplish. As we pulled into the Tri-County Jail parking lot, the butterfly started. It was go time. Do I need anything else?
I think we got a good place for you guys. It is in the secured area.
As we got our IDs and bags checked, Vicky and I got the green light from the jail to head on back. As we walked towards the secure area, the jail doors unlocked and locked. And the reality of what I was about to do struck me. I was nervous and excited to finally sit down with Eric and hear his side of the story. Vicky and I made our way to the conference room, and as we passed inmates on the other side of the hallway, they just automatically stopped in their tracks and stood up against the wall. I really didn't know what to say or do, so I just smiled and said, "Hello?" It was one of those really awkward situations where I wasn't sure what the correct response should be. I actually felt bad, and I just wanted to let them know that I I was comfortable, even if it was standard protocol. Vicky ran to the bathroom and left me standing in the conference room waiting for Eric. I moved things around, anxiously awaiting his arrival. I was going through all of the questions in my head that I wanted to ask. I did not want to miss my one chance to ask him all that I wanted to know before anyone could tamper with his response. A sudden noise had me looking up, and outside the conference wall was Eric. Eric was standing against the window with his back to me. The guards then brought him into the room and explained security protocol. I reassured them I was fine and understood how to call for help if needed. Eric was wearing, that standard orange jumpsuit. And as I stood there looking at Eric, I still had that picture of the young man I saw the night of the burglary 30 years ago trapped in my mind. Of course, he has grown older now and had grayish short hair. He was smaller in height and appeared to be somewhat timid, unsure of what to really expect. We locked eyes, and I wondered if he was thinking, how am I going to play this? How much does she really know? Has anyone seen that Friends episode where everyone finds out about Monica and Chandler? The they don't know that we know that they know episode? This is what it felt like in my head. I didn't know what Eric knew that I knew that he didn't know I already knew kind of thing. But anyways, as we continued to size each other up, or at least I know I was trying to determine how to play my cards. Eric walks from the back of the room towards me. I stick out my hand to shake his hand, but quickly pulled it back as the guard made a sudden move forward, and I thought, oh my God, Melissa, you already broke the rules. I asked the guard, can I shake his hand? And the guard just laughed and said, if you want to. So I did. I shook Eric's hand and offered him a seat at the table. We both tried to get as comfortable as we could, in those plastic chairs. And as we sat down, I took out my recorder, set it on the table, and hit record. Here's Eric. Well, thank you first for sitting down and talking with me. I've been looking for you.
The first 3 months that I heard you were looking for me, they didn't tell me who you really were. They told me a cop investigator. And I don't have a bad background, but with my background, and then I found out what it was about, and I kind of thought my sister, Jackie, was the one that stirred the pot, because she told me she had a dream about this, that you were, and then all of a sudden, she's the one that told me that you wasn't a reporter, like, she told me he was a cop, and I'm like, well, I don't want to talk to no cop.
Huh. So Jackie did know how to get a hold of Eric. Shocker. So I am not a cop. I am a civil investigator. So my name's Melissa, and I investigate cold cases.
Yeah.
And so I found Bernie's case online, and I have a podcast called Dog with a Bone.
Okay.
And I'm investigating Bernie's murder. And so my goal is to talk to everybody and anybody I could. And one of the main reasons I want to talk to you is because you were with Bernie that night.
I know more than anybody, yeah.
And you were good friends with him,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you meet Bernie?
I worked at Honda. He worked at Honda. It took like 3 years to become his friend. He's very picky about anybody and if, like say, all the other friends, the only way that we became friends is because he's like disabled. He couldn't, I fixed his trim. I painted the basement. I mean, I'm a contractor, so I did a lot of work for him. Then finally, I'm drinking and no driver's license. I started spending the night because I had work to do the next day.
Were you and Bernie doing drugs at that point?
Only a line or two. I would show up on Friday or a Saturday. I never was with him both nights of the week.
So you'd only be there one night partying with him?
Every once in a while, yeah.
Okay, so you weren't going out every weekend with him or anything like that?
No, once a month maybe.
So you weren't there all the time with him?
No. I wasn't. I had no clothes, just a bed and, sheets and a pillow.
So he gave you a room?
There was an extra room.
Did he give you a key to the house?
Never had a key.
I find it hard to believe that Bernie would offer a room to someone he would only hang out with one night, once a month. Why is Eric downplaying their relationship? Who was all at Bernie's house before you went out?
Just me and him the whole night.
So you and him leave and you go where?
Probably, this is going to be the old Flamingo. It burnt down. So we drank there, and then probably Stefan's, and then we probably walked clear back to his house. And then I remember him, this is the first time I did some work and I had some money. I was going to buy some coke off of him, first time. And because he liked it, I did work and I didn't know him anything. We were friends. So when we did that, I never owed him for the couple lines, a night.
So you and him leave and you go to Flamingo's, you go to Stefan's, and then you go back to Bernie's house.
Yeah.
Why?
To do that, the line.
And how did you get there?
We walk. The way he drives.
This completely contradicts everything that Jackie had said about Eric and Bernie taking Nick's truck. Jackie is adamant that they took Nick's truck. Maybe Eric forgot they drove or didn't want to admit he drove because he didn't have a license. But that was 30 years ago. So you get there and what happens?
Well, we did the line of coke and we went back to the bar. I think it was at the end of the night we'd realized that we didn't even know the safe was gone until the cops were there. And when they come, I said, aren't you going to I didn't go down in the bay. I did. I went to the bottom of the steps. It's dark. There's not a lot in there. I said, aren't you going to clear the house? And then a cop, bass singer, said, this ain't a robbery case. This is a drug case. We've been watching your house for 2.5 years or something like that. And then he got ordered to put us in cuffs. I probably was a little mouthy.
So just to be clear, you leave Stefan's to go do a line, right? You walk to Bernie's.
Yeah.
You get there, you go in, and what made Bernie realize his house had been broken into?
I can't remember. To tell you the truth, I don't want to guess.
I press Eric again about why they ended up going back to Bernie's.
At the end of the night, he didn't have any. I mean, I take him back, and I thought we were going to do more. I don't think we did any coke.
I'm just so confused right now, as he literally just said that they did coke, but now says they didn't because Bernie said he didn't have any left. But no worries, I circle back to it.
And that's when he realized the back door might have been open is what it was. But now I can still see the drag marks after the cops tell me, because where I'm standing cuffed, I can look towards the back door. There's a slider, and I can see where they pulled the safe.
Was Bernie drinking that night?
Yeah, we were both drunk, because I'm peeing in the road when the cops are coming. We're both drunk.
I guess I heard that he wasn't a big drinker, though.
Jack Velvet and Coke, 12 to 20 a night.
And was he drunk?
No, he walked because he's slightly handicapped, so he appears to be off anyway. But no, no more than he normally is at that hour of the night.
Again, he just told me that they were drunk, but now says that Bernie wasn't drunk. Which one is it? It is still pretty early.
See how emotional I am about that's about how drunk I think I felt that night. And if you turn this into alcohol, we wasn't that drunk. We'd only done a couple lines of coke. If we'd have did more than that, you drink more. That's why I had the urge to buy it. Man, I would never said the first time I was going to buy some, and he said no. Man, I told you that was it earlier, and I believed him.
So let me try to explain this example. Eric was not upset or crying, and this is what he meant by Bernie not being drunk, was that because Eric was not upset or crying, Bernie wasn't that drunk. I know, it's a weird example. It took me a moment to get it as well. So you originally went back with him because you thought you guys were going to do another line.
That end of the night.
I think it's really important for us to understand the why they returned if Bernie had no coke. I just don't see why Bernie would wait to tell Eric that he didn't have coke back at the house. Why didn't he tell him on the walk or drive back? But then when you get there, he says, well, no.
Yeah, I said no. Didn't have any. And then I think that's what I said. That's when we found out that he was robbed.
Yeah.
At the end of the night.
Why would you go back if he knew that he didn't have any more?
I didn't hear him say it, but after when he said it, I remember him, he did say it, but so I believed him. And then I think that's when he noticed the back door. And I'm the one that just said, you need to call the law. I probably wouldn't have said that if, like, Pete's the one that told me that, or no, Bernie told me he'd been broken into a couple of times before. I've talked to Pete. We're not the best of friends, but he said he knew about it. He's come over and helped fix stuff after it had been broken in.
was Pete involved in the drug scene too?
Yeah, but he wasn't in town that weekend.
Okay.
So that might have been his drugs in the safe. And so, without saying it earlier, I don't know.
Okay.
But I can't imagine Bernie buying them. He only bought enough to last a couple weeks. And he did little lines, so his shit would have lasted. But he probably did it every day when we wasn't around.
Okay.
On his own. He told Nickel that. It's all personal.
And now we flip back to the other side. Now Eric says, well, maybe the drugs in the safe were Pete's. So I asked Eric, is this an active house with people coming and going? And he said no. He said Bernie still did not have a lot of people over. I then transitioned to my next big question for Eric to understand more about Bernie's alarm system and why it wasn't activated.
Don't know the alarm code. Wanted me to have it because he'd be so drunk that they'd end up coming or call the police because he'd be so drunk at the end of the night he couldn't remember how to fix the alarm when you go in the house.
Vicky asked Eric, well, how long did he have the alarm system?
2 or 3 years. I think he changed the code 2 or 3 times because I didn't know that. I'm the one that told him to call the law that someone broke in.
Where was the alarm system kept?
It was right by the door. That's
On the outside, inside?
Inside the door. He had 12 or 20 seconds, something like that. That's a long time.
Yeah.
It was just a few steps inside the door of the house.
And how did it work? Did he set the alarm and then go out?
Yeah. And then everybody would go out and he would set the alarm and then he would walk out on his own.
Okay.
And at first, he would come in and no one would even walk in with him, but I'd walk in probably towards the end and just walk on by. And he's asked for help, but I'd never help him. I don't want to touch the thing.
Okay.
Let the cops come if you can't figure it out.
That sound is Eric tapping his fingers on the table, like to emphasize what he is telling me. So when you guys come back and you guys enter the house, Bernie didn't realize right away that his house had been broken into.
He knew that the house, I don't remember how he knew the house had been broken into. We didn't know the safe was going right until the cops told us.
But didn't he come in and realize the safe was missing?
No, I don't think we did.
I asked Eric, why did Bernie end up calling the cops this time?
I talked him into calling the cops because he said he'd been broken into before. I didn't know about that. He said a couple of times before, and I'm like, well, it looks. I don't want to leave, and then you call, get them here. And I stood outside and waited for him to pull up. And I was 12 feet from that safe the whole time. It was behind me behind the tree. Is supposedly what the cops told us.
I am curious why Eric didn't want to leave before the cops showed up. Was Eric simply being a good friend? But then he says, I was waiting for him to pull up. Who is him? Why not them? Okay. Maybe I am doing too much statement analysis. You and Bernie didn't see the safe.
We never seen it.
So you never saw it until the cops pointed it out?
They told us while we're both cuffed standing in the first room of his house. And they said it's just right outside the window, and I'm picturing it's in the dark as the shade of that other house. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see it, and I stood out there for 20, 30 minutes waiting on the cops to come. I was bitching at them when they got there.
Officer Basinger arrives at 12:05 a.m. after Bernie called at 12:01 a.m. per the reports, not 20 to 30 minutes. Now, Nickel probably arrived in 20 to 30 minutes. Where did he call the cops from?
Well, he kept walking around in his house from his phone. I think I think back then we would have had house phones. I don't think we had cell phones yet.
Was his alarm system set up through the phone, though?
I don't think it was. It's an old ADT.
So the alarm system was separate?
Yeah.
So if the alarm system went off and someone broke in, how would the cops get notified?
I don't know. The alarm system was supposed to call him.
Okay.
Call the police and they show up. And he would, when he would mess up his code, he would call the alarm system to let them know that it was him, and from being so drunk. I've seen him do that before.
I pressed Eric more on why the alarm system didn't go off when they walked into the house.
I don't know. I'm puzzled about it. Well, I think we might have noticed that yeah, it's not even working or something. Maybe that's what it was. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
And then we noticed the back door. I remember the slider door was open and the curtains. He always pulled them, the long strip things closed. They were open, like somebody had been in the back door. What I was told, it was cut from the outside. But who would have known to do that? I mean, why would them lines be there anyway? They shouldn't have been run like that.
I agree. Who would have known that information?
Those two lines were like conduit outside, right out the wall. Where if you knew where the alarm system was, you'd know that. But I can't imagine. I thought if you cut them wires, it would go off.
I asked Eric, how would John and Alan even know about the alarm system to disable it?
The cops had to tell something. The police, I know for a fact. Everybody kept asking me to stay away from them because they must be snitches because they robbed that old man in other places and nothing's happening to them, and then just over the years thinking about it, the cops had to tell them, we'll go rob them and whatever you get, you keep. But in fact, hoping that we would call the cops.
This is a big gamble in my eyes. I don't know about you, but Eric is suggesting to me that maybe John and Alan made a deal with the cops and that they got to keep whatever they stole. They got off these charges from the burglary. But then the cops just rolled the dice and hoping that Bernie ended up calling them. I do want to point out, though, Eric was the one that encouraged Bernie to call the cops. Bernie had not called any other time his house had been broken into. Why this time? How did the cops find out it was John and Alan who broke in?
They didn't. I don't know. It can't be from me realizing that was his redhead girlfriend. I think other people snitched on him.
Were you friends with John?
I grew up with him. I lived with him for about maybe 3 years.
And did John do coke?
He would if he could afford it, but like I say, but he had a bag of marijuana all the time.
What about Alan?
He would shoot coke. From what I'm hearing from people, yeah, he was about as low down person as you can get. Would rob his family to buy any drug. Mm-hmm. I didn't want him. We didn't want to be around him.
Didn't Jackie accuse Eric of stealing from their dying mother? But now Alan is as low down person as you can get. It's just so hard keeping up with all the finger pointing. So in 93, you and John were not hanging out together? Here come the taps again. Do you see a pattern?
I probably knew him. I went over there for the guy to look for shotguns the second time that they robbed that old man because he was a friend of mine. I guarantee it wasn't 93 because it took a long time to get over after hearing that he robbed my friend. It was way longer than that. Do you think that John and Alan stole a safe? I think they're the ones that... John's a monster. He's the only one that could have got that damn safe out in the yard. I
asked Eric if John and Bernie were friends.
No, he's seen us before... And Bernie wasn't having that. Bernie don't like strangers. So let's say it took me 2, 3, 4 years before I was more like his chaperone. Make sure he went because he drank. He got home. Even when I drove, I would leave after I'd take him. Before I had a bed there, I would drive out of there. How would John and Alan know to break into Bernie's? I'm thinking the cops. I don't know if they've been watching that house thinking that he's a dope dealer. Because, you got people in there, if they wasn't asking him to front him drugs, they were borrowing money. So they would tell John and Alan about the safe? No, I don't think they know him either. I don't know how. I wouldn't know how. I'm thinking the police is the one that had to tell John and Alan because we're wondering why they're not in jail. And I even told him I know where the guns went to the old man. Eric continues to explain to me why he believes the cops are the ones who set up John and Alan to steal the safe. But why wasn't Eric arrested, too, by association of over 20 grams of coke? They're there because they're getting out of these other 2 charges. That's what because nothing's ever happened. Nothing ever happened about it. I even told him where the guns was. Eric shares with me when he realized it was John and Alan.
But he claims it was only years after Bernie's murder when he finally put two and two together.
I kept seeing this big LTD or some old car with a creamish, orangey yellow with a white top, and that's Alan's girlfriend's car. She kept driving by, a redhead girl, kept driving by. Every time I seen the headlights, good, the cops are coming. Finally, I didn't see that car for a while, so that's why I was peeing when the cops were coming up.
Yeah.
And that made, I didn't know that's her car, but I recognized the there's not very many redheads around, and that was Alan's girlfriend.
So you saw what looked like to be maybe Alan's girlfriend driving.
The redhead girl.
And did you actually see her driving?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it didn't click in my head. That was her in that big car. They're coming back for that safe like a year or two after this all happened. And then it's clicking that's that is her name. Redhead.
This just doesn't add up for me, though, since the trial of John had already happened. And when reviewing Alan's statement from the police, he said, quote, "Eric and I locked eyes," end quote. Quite a few people are telling me that you set this whole thing up, meaning the burglary.
I've already heard you've heard this, and that's why I shouldn't even be talking to you. You should go straight to my attorney. I shouldn't have said anything because the two people that you've heard that from know jack shit.
I'm curious, who did Eric hear this from?
My sister told me some things. Well,
Okay.
I know that she said somebody else's name. She said three names, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I can tell you it wasn't Bo and it wasn't Kim.
Well, I thought it was. That pissed me off because I used to date Kim, and me and Bo's been friends. She used to date John.
Mm-hmm. So Jackie talked to you about me.
Yeah.
What'd she say?
She told me to avoid you. She did. I mean. Yeah.
Well, she hung up at me. She got upset.
I thought she started this whole thing because she said she had a dream and we're going to bring up John Burnside's murder case again. Because I've had dreams that he's still alive. That's weird. And she knows that. And so.
Well, I'm glad you ended up talking to me. Even though Eric says, hey, I shouldn't be talking to you, you need to go to my lawyer, he doesn't end our conversation. Maybe talking to me is better than going back to his jail cell? But I think it's more that he has information he would like to share. I transition our conversation to the safe and how much coke would Bernie normally keep in the safe at a time. One of the things that's always I'm wondering is like, okay, so if we know that you're broken into and your safe is missing, which had coke and from the...
But it didn't. It had that change in it. Is why we're upset. That's why we called, because he just had showed it to me sometime that week that he had 3 more big ice cream containers full of silver.
Did you just catch that? If not, let me help out. He just said that is why we are upset and called was because of the missing coins. But earlier he said that they didn't know it was missing. I then circle back to, again, how much coke was in the safe.
No, the change, $3,000.
But what about cash?
I don't think so. I wouldn't know anything. I don't think he kept cash in there.
And then was there drugs sitting out in plain sight?
No, there's nothing in that house.
So nothing in the bedroom, on the dresser, no drugs, nothing that where if a cop comes in and sees it, he's going to say...
Nothing. There's not even if they would have found anything, it would have been the one cut straw that we had used earlier that night. But it never, as far as I know, they never found it. I don't know, unless he threw it in his trash. I don't know.
So there's photos of Bernie's bedroom with drug paraphernalia all around.
Nothing. Well, I can tell you for a fact because we walked around and looked. If they found a straw, that would have been the one that we used at 11:30 at night. I'm pretty. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure we would have got rid of it. We're not dumbasses.
This is the straw, according to Nichols' report, that they found in the trash. So how would it all get there?
Yeah, the cops put shit there.
It was all out.
Yeah, there was nothing. No, he wouldn't do that.
I've heard he was very clean and organized.
None of that would have been there. And I would say it's not. I don't know. I'd say it wasn't his. I don't know.
Has Eric ever seen inside the safe?
2 or 3 times. I've seen the safe 3 or 4 times from the outside.
Okay.
But I don't think I think he had paperwork to the house and stuff. He didn't keep no cash in there. He didn't have no cash. He lived week to week.
This is actually opposite of what Mike had told me regarding the amount of cash Bernie would keep at a time in his safe. Remember, Mike said that Bernie would normally keep easily 10 grand.
I would think. I don't know. He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't take vacations. He didn't even eat out very well. I don't know what he did with his money.
So how did he get the coke?
All I know from all these years is they met some guy at a black guy at McDonald's in Dublin somewhere. I've never had nothing. I don't know this person at all. Mm-hmm. Never met him. Never went friends with him. But I never. I know that someone on a Friday night, I've got there a couple times before, and someone had already picked it up for him because they go get dope at the same place. And that's all. I never met the guy. And I guarantee you, it's not the dope dealer that killed my buddy. I don't think.
So how big was he, a drug dealer?
No, he wasn't. It was only the 5 or 6 friends that I don't know how many's in that book. If they knew on Friday, they knew to come around on Friday night because he's going to have his own.
So he would only have small amounts on Fridays?
That's all I knew, yeah, as far as I know.
Okay. So people will come and borrow money from him?
I've seen people borrow money from him before.
Where did he keep this money?
I wouldn't know. I don't remember. I never seen him spend hardly any money. I took him to the lake with my parents and stuff. And we usually go 50-50. I don't know. I never thought about what he did with his money. He worked at Honda. He made a little bit more than me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Eric first tells me that people borrowed money from Bernie, but then flips over to Bernie hardly had any money and lived week to week. I do want to point out it was stated in the Marysville Tribune that Bernie did not have any money and was in debt. This is false. Bernie paid all his bills on time. He worked at Honda, owned his own home, car. He was far from being in debt. But you have to ask yourself, why did Nickel even suggest this was a reason for suicide without having proof that this was accurate? Where did Nickel and Coutts get this information from about Bernie being in debt without speaking to the family or reviewing his bank statements? Since Eric mentions a diary kept, I take this to mean his black book. I want to know what Eric knew about it.
I didn't know about this diary until 2 years after he was dead. He had a diary, and I never knew about it. But I'm the only one out of everybody that you'll see that wasn't in that book. I never borrowed no money. I never bought no drugs from him.
Eric confirms that Bernie for sure had a black book and points out he was never in that book, even though he never saw it. I ask where Bernie kept it.
I've never seen it, though. I only seen that safe like 2 months right before, and he was showing me Christmas money.
Before I continue with Eric's interview, I want to stop and provide more information I discovered during the investigation into the drug scene. I spoke to someone with inside information on the drug ring that was taking place around and in Honda during 1993. I believe that this explains what the person who murdered Bernie was after and couldn't get from him: the names of Bernie's associates. I decided to keep this individual's identity anonymous. Who was supplying it?
Bernie and my buddy and another guy were all three together, worked at Honda, and they moved. I mean, Bernie didn't personally do it, but he was involved in a lot of cocaine moving through there. He wasn't the guy that did the big hustle well. Steve was the guy that did the big hustle.
So Bernie was and he knew what was going on.
Oh, yeah, he knew. He making money, but he didn't have to touch stuff, and he just a tweener, you know. He was in on the money.
He was handling all the money?
No, he was in on fronting the money. Bernie would front the money with Steve. He got cocaine up with you would not believe.
Okay.
It had to come straight from inmate George, because it was out of this world.
I don't know who Steve is.
But you've never heard of yet?
No.
Steve, it was he was, I mean, as far as I knew, he was the biggest guy I ever do around here.
Okay, and he worked at Honda.
Yep.
Okay, so let me see if I got this right. So Steve worked at Honda, Bernie worked at Honda, and Bernie...
Pete.
Who?
Pete.
So they all worked at Honda, and then Bernie would provide the money to Steve.
Yep. Bernie and several other guys, they all pitch in.
I have to think that this is why Pete has not agreed to talk to me yet. According to many people, Pete was part of the drug trafficking ring with Bernie and Steve.
Would hook up, get their cut, and they'd get a cut off the final sale. So, I mean, you put in a couple $1,000 and you get a free ounce plus all your money back.
So is that a lot back then? I mean, is this like big, like, is that worth?
It was huge in Marysville at that point. Yes, it was massive. I mean, I would say they probably had a thumb on the old cocaine system in the town.
Really?
Yeah.
So going back to this at Honda. So Steve worked at Honda. Where would Steve get his cocaine from?
I do not know.
From Ohio, maybe? Columbus?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I know. Yeah. He was Columbus, Knobbit.
Okay.
Columbus and Dayton's.
I'm so glad that you can talk this language with me to help me understand. So we start at the beginning. Give me an example. Like they give him
$5,000.
$5,000.
And they'd get a quarter key.
Okay.
They get a quarter key. They get an ounce free. They can keep the rest. They'd get all their money back. Then the ounce for free.
So then Bernie would turn around and sell what he had?
Here and there to his buddies. That wasn't his thing. He didn't sell a ton of it.
So then why is he investing in it?
Free cocaine, women.
Okay, so he would put up
$5,000. He'd get a free ounce and all his money back. That was their perk for their investment. They got a free ounce and then all their money back.
Okay, so Steve might have had other people working for him selling.
Yeah, I'm sure there was lots of people involved.
So Bernie was...
He's a front man.
Okay, and then he gets just the benefits of it all.
Yep. Thought of all of it, but it obviously was worth it to him to do what he did.
I spoke to another individual who worked with Bernie at Honda, and he confirmed that this was a common practice. How would you describe Marysville in 1993?
Growing fast, probably too fast. A lot of money coming in there. It was just a small, sleepy town, and then Honda went in, and you had 3,000 people working, making $10, $12, $15 an hour, spending a lot of money, drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs.
What kind of drugs were kind of going around at that point?
A lot of cocaine in the plant, but marijuana, I mean, a lot of it. And actually, Bernie, he dealt.
I heard that. He dealt coke and marijuana, right?
I never was much for coke.
And then that's where I heard, too, that it was a great source of where a lot of the cocaine and marijuana was coming through, was through the Honda plant. When did Honda come in?
They started building motorcycles in 1979, but they didn't start the car plant until 1983. I believe John hired him before me,
okay.
So it was going like, they were hiring like 50 people a month back then.
Wow.
Interviewing 100 and hiring half of them because they were getting ready to start another line. They already had one line running, 2 shifts, and they put in another assembly line and were getting ready to turn it on, and they needed that many more people again. So it was booming.
As I look back from when I first started this investigation 5 months ago, everyone told me that Bernie was a small-town drug dealer, but only to his friends. However, it turns out Bernie played a much larger role in providing money to this 3-man ring to purchase kilos of cocaine. This actually makes a lot more sense to me. A guy like Bernie, who is easygoing, well-liked, and someone people did not think twice about, was part of the largest drug scene in Marysville at the time? Pretty smart. I need to find out more from Eric about his claim again that there was no drugs in the safe when police report finding 24 grams. Why he left Bernie the next day and didn't break in, but also, who does Eric think is responsible for Bernie's murder? Dog with a bone. So why would they take Bernie to jail then?
There was nothing in there. No coke at all. I feel that the person I left him with is the person that probably killed him.
And who did you leave him with?
Glenn Nickel.
Dog with a Bone is hosted, investigated, produced, and written by Melissa Sandberg. Additional writing by Caitlin Sandberg. Edited by Jason Sandberg. Theme music by Alex Yukich. Dog with a Bone is a Sasquatch production.